Welcome the anointed ones. You don't lose a diamond while playing in the dirt, you fumble it when you forget its worth. Have you ever watched someone let go of something so priceless, so irreplaceable, that it almost felt like a crime? Well, chosen ones, that's exactly what happened when they fumbled you. Here's a fact to chew on. Studies show that people often fail to recognize the value of extraordinary individuals until they're long gone. And oh, how embarrassing that realization must be for them now. Imagine them scrolling through your social media, sweating bullets, thinking, I really let that go. But here's the kicker. They didn't just lose you, they underestimated you. They thought they had you all figured out, and now they're sitting in the rubble of their own poor decisions, trying to piece together how they let someone like you slip through their fingers. So buckle up, because today, we're diving into the cold, hard truths about how they fumbled their biggest blessing. And trust me, it's so embarrassing, it might make them cringe harder than we do. Let's get into it. At number one, they mistook your calm for weakness. The biggest mistake they made was assuming your calmness meant you were weak. To them, your ability to stay composed under pressure, avoid unnecessary conflict, and let certain things slide was a sign they could take you lightly. They thought they could push boundaries, disrespect your space, or test your patience because you wouldn't react like others might. What they didn't realize was that your calmness wasn't weakness. It was your strength in disguise. Your calmness meant you were in control. It showed that you understood the power of silence, that you knew how to pick your battles wisely, and that you wouldn't waste your energy on things beneath you. But in their arrogance, they misread it. They thought you didn't notice the subtle slights, the manipulation, or their underhanded moves. They didn't realize you were fully aware and just choosing not to stoop to their level. And then came the turning point, the moment when they pushed too far, the moment when your calm exterior shifted, not with anger or retaliation, but with quiet distance. That's when they felt the sting of their mistake. Suddenly, they were no longer in your presence, no longer privy to your energy, no longer a part of your world. What's worse for them is the realization that your calm wasn't passive, it was deliberate. You were always in control, always 2 steps ahead, and now they're left with the bitter truth. They fumbled someone they couldn't afford to lose. They embarrassed themselves because they mistook restraint for vulnerability and patience for passivity. Now, they're left to sit in the awkward silence of their regret, knowing that your calm wasn't just a strength, it was a warning they chose to ignore. Number two, they thought their validation mattered. They thought their validation was the key to your worth, the seal of approval you needed to feel significant. That was their first mistake. They believed they were the gatekeepers to your confidence, assuming you needed their praise or acceptance to realize your value. What they never understood is that you've always defined your own worth, and their opinion of you was nothing more than background noise. To them, it must have been confusing. You didn't bend to their standards or scramble for their recognition like so many others had. Instead, you moved with an air of quiet confidence, as if you knew something they didn't. And you did. You knew that true power doesn't come from external validation, it comes from within. Their approval was never your currency, and their attention wasn't the reward you were after. They fumbled you because they misjudged the source of your self-assurance. They thought withholding compliments, playing games, or giving half-hearted support would keep you dependent on them. They wanted you to feel like you had something to prove, as if their acknowledgement was a prize worth chasing. But instead, you walked away, uninterested in their game. Now they're left scratching their heads, wondering why their validation didn't hold the weight they thought it did. It's embarrassing for them because they were playing a game you weren't even participating in. They wanted to be the ones who discovered you, who took credit for your shine. But instead, you've shown them that your light was never theirs to dim or to claim. You didn't need their validation then, and you certainly don't need it now. That's a truth they'll have to live with, and it stings more than they'll ever admit. Number three, they thought you were replaceable. They thought you were replaceable. In their mind, you were just another person who brought value, but nothing they couldn't find elsewhere. They figured they could walk away, mishandle you, or take you for granted, because surely someone else could fill the space you left behind. That belief was their fatal error. What they didn't realize was that your energy, presence, and impact are one of a kind. It's not something you can replicate or substitute with someone else. You didn't just occupy a role in their life. You transformed it in ways they couldn't even comprehend. Your value wasn't surface level. It was rooted in who you are, the depth of your character, and the way you brought clarity, balance, and meaning into their world. Now that you're gone, they're starting to see the cracks in the foundation they thought was unshakable. They're realizing that it wasn't just anyone who brought the energy, wisdom, and calm to their chaos. It was you, and no one else can do what you did the way you did it. Here's the thing about people who think everyone is replaceable. They don't understand the concept of uniqueness until it's gone. They don't see the rarity of what they had until they're left with pale imitations that fall short every time. That's where they are now, fumbling through connections, trying to find even a shadow of what you offered, and coming up empty-handed. They're embarrassed because it's finally hitting them. They let go of something irreplaceable. And now, they have to sit with the fact that they treated a diamond like a pebble, and there's no going back. That's the kind of regret that lingers, and it's entirely their own doing. Number 4, they failed to recognize your aura's value. They failed to recognize the value of your aura because they didn't understand the depth of what they were experiencing. Your energy is magnetic, a rare force that draws people in without effort. It's not something you can fake or replicate. It's an innate quality that radiates from your very being. They were drawn to it, captivated even, but they misjudged it entirely. To them, it was just charisma, something surface level they could take lightly or dismiss as a fleeting attraction. But your aura isn't just about charm or presence. It's the energy that changes the atmosphere when you walk into a room. It's the way people feel understood, seen, and inspired in your presence without you saying much at all. It's the way you carry wisdom, strength, and authenticity that others crave but rarely encounter. They couldn't quite put their finger on what made you so different, and instead of appreciating it, they underestimated it. Now that you're no longer in their life, they're grappling with the void left behind. That magnetic pull they once felt is gone, and they're left with a hollow realization. They didn't just lose a connection. They lost something rare and irreplaceable. They're starting to see the difference between fleeting charisma and the profound energy you brought to their life. Their embarrassment lies in their short-sightedness. They had something extraordinary in front of them, but instead of valuing it, they assumed it was just another temporary spark. Now they're left chasing shadows, searching for something they'll never find again. Your aura wasn't superficial. It was a gift, and they let it slip through their fingers without even knowing what they had. Number 5, they underestimated your resilience. They underestimated your resilience because they mistook your silence and grace for fragility. They thought that by withdrawing their support, throwing obstacles your way, or creating chaos in your life, they could bring you down. In their mind, you depended on their presence, approval, or assistance to succeed. But the truth? You've never been one to rely on anyone's help to thrive. What they didn't understand is that your strength comes from within. You've faced challenges before, some far greater than anything they could ever throw at you, and you've come out stronger every single time. So when they tried to sabotage you, they weren't prepared for the outcome. Instead of crumbling, you rose higher. Instead of breaking, you became unshakable. And now, as they watch you thrive without them, the weight of their miscalculation is hitting them hard. Their embarrassment comes from the realization that their influence was never as significant as they believed. They thought they were a cornerstone in your life, but you've proven they were nothing more than a temporary chapter. The obstacles they placed in your path, they became stepping stones. The support they took away, it only revealed your ability to build yourself up. Now they're forced to watch from the sidelines as you soar beyond their reach. They're left questioning how they could have underestimated someone so resilient, so self-reliant, and so determined. Their attempts to hinder you have only magnified your strength, and their embarrassment is rooted in the undeniable truth. They thought they could break you, but all they did was sharpen your resolve and solidify your success. Number 6. They took your forgiveness for foolishness. They took your forgiveness for foolishness because they couldn't comprehend the strength it takes to let go of anger and move forward. When you forgave them for their past mistakes, they didn't see it as an act of grace or maturity. Instead, they saw it as a green light to test your limits. They mistook your mercy for weakness, assuming you didn't know any better or lacked the courage to stand up for yourself. What they didn't understand is that forgiveness doesn't mean you were blind to their actions. You saw the lies, the manipulation, the disrespect. You simply chose not to let it consume you. Forgiving them wasn't about excusing their behavior. It was about freeing yourself from the weight of their wrongs. But in their arrogance, they believed it was a sign they could keep pushing, keep playing their games, and you'd continue to let it slide. Now, they're haunted by the realization that they overplayed their hand. They thought your forgiveness was endless, but it wasn't. It was a one-time offering, a gift they've now squandered. By mistaking your kindness for naivety, they failed to see that your forgiveness came with boundaries. Once those boundaries were crossed, you didn't lash out or seek revenge. You simply withdrew. And that's what stings the most. They lost access to you without a fight, left to face the consequences of their actions alone. Their regret grows every day because they now understand that your forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was strength, the kind they could never match. And now that mercy is off the table, they're left with the cold reality that they'll never find anyone else who would have given them the grace you did. That privilege is gone, and so are you. Number 7, they never imagined you'd outgrow them. They never imagined you'd outgrow them because they had you boxed into a version of yourself that fit their comfort. They thought they knew who you were, what you were capable of, and where your life would go. In their minds, you'd always stay within their reach, dependent on their validation or approval, playing small to fit the image they crafted for you. What they didn't anticipate was your evolution, your refusal to stay confined by anyone else's expectations. As you grew, you didn't just change, you transformed. You shed the limitations they imposed, broke free of the roles they assigned you, and redefined yourself on your own terms. They didn't see it coming because they were too busy underestimating you, too focused on controlling a version of you that no longer exists. Now, as they watch you rise, surpassing the boundaries they set and the heights they thought you'd never reach, they're left stunned. Their embarrassment isn't just about your success, it's about the role they played in holding you back. They realize they were never prepared for your growth, never equipped to handle the person you've become. They're watching from the sidelines now, grappling with the bitter truth. They were so focused on keeping you small that they failed to see the potential you always had. You've outgrown not just their expectations, but their entire worldview. Where they saw limitations, you saw opportunities. Where they doubted, you believed. And now, their embarrassment is compounded by the fact that they could have been part of your journey, but instead, they're stuck watching from the past as you rise to levels they never even imagined. Number 8, they projected their insecurities onto you. They projected their insecurities onto you because facing their own fears and doubts was too much for them to handle. You became their scapegoat, the person they blamed for feelings they didn't want to acknowledge within themselves. Instead of admiring your strength, your potential, and your unique qualities, they saw them as threats, reminders of everything they lacked. It wasn't your confidence or success that bothered them. It was the way those traits highlighted their own shortcomings. In their minds, tearing you down was easier than building themselves up. So they planted seeds of doubt, criticized you unnecessarily, and tried to make you question your worth. They treated you as if you were the one with the problem, when, in reality, they were battling their own inner demons. Their strategy was simple. If they could shake your confidence, they wouldn't have to confront their own inadequacies. But here's the twist. They failed. No matter how hard they tried to transfer their insecurities onto you, you didn't let it stick. You saw through their games and refused to carry the weight of their issues. Instead, you continued to grow, evolve, and thrive. while they stayed stuck in the same cycle of self-doubt and avoidance. Now they're left with the uncomfortable realization that their behavior wasn't about you at all. It was always about their own unresolved struggles, and their attempts to bring you down only exposed their own fragility. Their embarrassment comes from understanding that while they wasted time projecting their fears onto you, you were busy proving that those fears had no power over you, and that's a truth they can't escape. Number 9. They were unprepared for your glow-up. They were unprepared for your glow-up because they never believed you'd step into your full potential. They only knew the version of you that was still learning, still growing, and still figuring things out. In their minds, you were someone they could overlook or take for granted because they assumed you'd always be the same. But what they failed to see was that every challenge you faced, every setback you endured, was fueling your transformation. Now, you've become unrecognizable, in the best way. You've stepped into your power, radiating confidence, strength, and self-assuredness. Your glow-up wasn't just physical, it was mental, emotional, and spiritual. You've elevated yourself in ways they never imagined, and it's shaken their perception of who you are. They're left wondering how they missed the signs, how they overlooked the potential that was always there, waiting to shine. Their regret runs deep because they only valued the version of you that was still in progress, never realizing that you were destined for greatness. They didn't invest in who you were becoming. They were too focused on who you used to be. Now they're watching from the sidelines, grappling with the reality that they misjudged you entirely. Your glow-up isn't just a testament to your resilience, it's a reminder that you don't need anyone's validation to thrive. You did this on your own terms, at your own pace, and the results speak for themselves. Their embarrassment is rooted in the fact that they could have been part of your journey, but they chose not to see your worth. Now, they're left regretting the fact that they only knew the version of you that was still growing, while you've risen to heights they could never reach. Number 10. They thought you'd always be accessible. They thought you'd always be accessible because they took your presence for granted, assuming you would always be there when they needed you. They believed they could come and go from your life on their terms, dipping in for a quick boost of your energy or support, then disappearing when it no longer suited them. They didn't consider that you, too, have your limits, or that you'd ever see through their selfish patterns. For a while, you played along, offering your time, your energy, and your care without hesitation, always available to meet their needs. But at some point, something shifted. You realized that your presence isn't a given. It's a privilege. And when you finally withdrew, when you stopped making yourself so accessible, they were caught off guard. They had come to rely on you without even giving it a second thought. But now, you're no longer a fixture in their life, and the void you left behind is louder than their assumptions ever were. Their embarrassment comes from the audacity of it all, thinking that they could take from you without giving, using your time and energy as if it was an unlimited resource. Now they're left scrambling, realizing they don't have the same easy access to you anymore. They're forced to confront the reality that your presence isn't guaranteed, and that by taking you for granted, they've lost the privilege of having you in their lives. What once seemed like a given is now gone, and they're left questioning how they ever mistook your generosity for something permanent. Number 11. They thought you needed them to succeed. They thought you needed them to succeed because they believed their support, their opinions, or their resources were essential to your progress. They figured that without their guidance or validation, you wouldn't get very far. Whether it was their expertise, their connections, or simply the idea that you were somehow dependent on them, they were convinced you couldn't make it without them. They basked in the illusion that they held some sort of key to your success. But here's the twist. You didn't need any of it. You proved that your success was never about relying on others. It was always about your own drive, talent, and relentless ambition. You built your achievements with your own hands, and you did it on your own terms. Every milestone you reached was fueled by your inner strength, your discipline, and your refusal to be held back by anyone's limitations. Now, they're left grappling with the fact that you've managed to create something incredible, something real, without any of the things they thought were necessary. The very resources they believed were crucial to your success were just distractions in comparison to the power you already had within you. They watched in disbelief as you achieved greatness on your own, realizing too late that their contributions were never the deciding factor. Their embarrassment stings because they can no longer hold that perceived power over you. They thought you needed them, but in reality you only needed yourself. And now, as you continue to rise, they're left to reckon with the fact that they were never the key to your success. They were just a small part of a bigger picture you were already creating all along. Number 12. They never believed you'd walk away so easily. They never believed you'd walk away so easily. And that's the part that stings the most. For so long they thought they had a hold on you, that you'd always stay no matter how poorly they treated you or how little effort they put in. They figured you'd hesitate, second-guess yourself, or at least hold on to the connection out of fear of losing it. But when the time came, you didn't bat an eye. You left without the drama, without the back and forth, and certainly without the emotional baggage they thought would anchor you. The detachment you showed shook them to their core. It wasn't just that you walked away, it was how easily you did it. No begging, no explanations, no long goodbyes. It was as if you were already emotionally and mentally untethered long before you physically left. They were left dumbfounded, trying to process how someone they thought would always be there could just slip away with such ease. In their eyes, they were special, irreplaceable, and yet you moved on without a backward glance, making them realize just how dispensable they truly were. What's even more embarrassing for them is that they never saw it coming. They took for granted that you'd always be available, that your loyalty was unconditional. Now, their ego is bruised because they have to face the harsh reality. They were never as essential to you as they thought. You've shown them that your strength doesn't come from anyone else. It comes from within. And that realization, the shock of how easily you walked away, is a bitter pill they'll have to swallow for a long time. In the end, the truth is undeniable. They fumbled you because they never truly understood your worth. They assumed you would always be available, that your success was tied to their approval, and that you needed them to succeed. But you proved them wrong, and now they're left to deal with the aftermath of their own miscalculations. The very things they thought made them indispensable, whether it was their support, attention, or influence, have only revealed how dispensable they truly were. Your glow-up, your resilience, and your unapologetic independence have all left them in the dust, embarrassed by the fact that they never recognized who you truly are. They missed the opportunity to appreciate you, and now you're thriving without them. Their egos are bruised, and their regret is palpable, but you're too busy stepping into your power to look back. You've shown them that you don't need anyone's validation, and your success is rooted in your own strength, your own vision, and your own relentless drive. You walked away, not because you couldn't handle them, but because you knew you deserved more. You understood that your worth isn't tied to anyone else's approval. The moment they underestimated you is the moment you began your rise, and now they'll forever be stuck in the shadow of your brilliance. If you felt the power of your own strength resonate with this, if you've recognized the truth in every word, then now is the time to take that next step. Hit that subscribe button, because this journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and unapologetic greatness is just getting started. You don't want to miss out on the wisdom, the revelations, and the unapologetic truth we're about to unfold together. Let's keep this momentum going and make sure you're always ahead of the curve, embracing your own power and leaving those who fumbled you in the dust. Subscribe now, your next level is waiting. Stay blessed.